Purdue fans. This is Johnny DeCamp bringing you play-by-play the rousing...
Hi, everybody, along with Ron Kramer, this is Pete Van Wieren welcoming you to Ross-Ade Stadium.
Live from Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette, Indiana.
It's a football Saturday in West Lafayette, Indiana, and one of the biggest home games in decades.
Boilermakers rush the field. What a night at West Lafayette.
Your Central Indiana Ford dealers are a proud sponsor of Purdue football and the Ross-Ade's Greatest Games podcast. Visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today. Welcome to the Ross-Ade's Greatest Games podcast. I'm Corey Palm. He's Tim Newton, and we are here to count down some of the greatest games in the history of the stadium during its 100th season. A few notes, as always, Tim, before we get started. It's not a comprehensive list. We can't possibly cover all the games that we'd like to in the 12 weeks that we have to present them to you. So if one of your favorite games isn't on that list, we apologize. Secondly, we're not going to rank these games because that would be an impossible task, and you all would yell at us. So we're not doing that.
But send all complaints to Corey Palm at...
C. Palm. No. Actually, if you want to join the conversation, there's a Ross-Ade 100 Twitter account.
There you go.
X account, if that's what it is. Feel free to join on there and tell us what games we missed or what ones you'd like to see or what ranks where. Tim, mid-90s, we're going to jump into 1995, and we got a treat for you today because Mike Alstott is joining the show here in just a little bit to talk about his senior season and one of the best performances from his senior season. The first Saturday in November 1995 when the Wisconsin Badgers came to town.
Yeah, it was 1995 was a special year for me because it was the first year I had joined the radio network, and I just remember it was a privilege to be able to call some of Mike Alstott's games because he was one of the greatest players we've ever seen wear the gold and black. Unfortunately, never got to play in a bowl game. Yep. We'll talk to him about that, but I think he's made up for it in his professional career and life after football. So, but yeah, it was a game. You know, you think about Purdue, Wisconsin, and you think Purdue throwing the ball all over the place, Wisconsin running the ball. Purdue ran, 400-plus yards that day.
Yeah. The best rushing performance in school history, by a tandem of backs. Mike finished with 204 yards on the ground. His sophomore running mate, Edwin Watson, in his first start turn, really, for the Boilermakers, 194. Yeah. And he said after the game, if he'd known he was that close to 200, he would have begged for another carry. But let's get right into the game. It was a snowy Saturday in early November, kind of a chilly day, kept the crowd down. The season, no doubt, kept the crowd down a little bit as well. Just about 40,000 people turned out, and they saw the Boilermakers jump out on top. Rick Trefsker hit Brian Alford for let's see, I've got it right here, 64-yard touchdown on the third play from offensive scrimmage for the Boilermakers, and Purdue jumped out on top.
You know, Rick Trefsker was a guy who had his days, a left-hander, was able to run a little bit, and when you got a guy to throw to like a Brian Alford, you got a pretty good option out there at the wide receiver spot, and they hooked up a few times that season, but that was one of the bigger plays on the year.
It was. The defense came out with a 7-0 lead, stopped the Badgers, got the ball right back. Trefsker comes back out on the field, throws a 75-yard pick six.
The other way.
Going the other way.
Yeah.
So it is,
you win some, you lose some.
That's the way it goes. The roller coaster of that season, and we'll talk a little bit about that season. Let's do it right now. The Boilermakers were so close.
Yeah, 4-6-1, but in a lot of games. And you mentioned the weather in that game against Wisconsin. The worst weather game maybe I've seen in the 29 years I've been doing this. The game later that month at Michigan.
Yep.
And it's actually the game that knocked Purdue out of bowl contention. We'll talk to Mike about that game. 5-0, the final score, in a day that had not only cold and wind, but rain, sleet, and snow, all in the span of 2 quarters at Michigan Stadium.
I lived in Michigan for half a dozen years or so. That's called a hat trick when you get all 3 of those.
Yeah, they call that Tuesday where I'm from.
Yeah, Buffalo's a little different up there. Okay, so it's 7-all in the first quarter, and then Edwin Watson is heard from a long touchdown run from Watson. He braced one 63 yards to put the Boilermakers back up 14-7 after 1. Alstott scored on a 40-yard run early in the second quarter. So it's just big play after big play after big play.
Well, maybe Jim Coletto at that point had taken the Woody Hayes approach on the forward pass, where 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad. We saw the pick 6, so he said, I got Alstott and I got Watson. Let's see what they can do just handing them the ball.
They did just fine. The Badgers again got close. They scored as well. Purdue missed an extra point after Alstott's touchdown, so it's 20-14 at the half. And Wisconsin actually comes out, recovers a fumble from Trefsker, and turns that into quick points. So the Badgers take a 21-20 lead early in the third, and then the Purdue offense just sort of ground the game away from there and really controlled the second half. The defense did a great job. The defense had a pretty rough year in 95, but it was 4 turnovers by the offense that really kept the Badgers in the game.
And I do vaguely remember that day. You're sitting there early in the third quarter thinking that you're dominating the football game, and yet because of the turnovers you're down. And that's, again, you mentioned it, that just run the ball, and the Badgers really never could figure out Purdue's running game that day.
They couldn't. Wisconsin ended up with 230 yards of total offense, just 50 yards on the ground, which is very unlike a Barry Alvarez team.
Yeah. I think those tables have been turned a few times in the last few years.
We choose not to look back at those types of memories,
No.
but final Alstott caps the day with his second touchdown, goes 204 yards, as we said, a career high at the time, 36 carries. We said they ground him into the ground.
John McKay said it, the ball's not heavy.
Yep.
It ain't heavy.
Keep carrying
it.
Career high for carries for Alstott, 2 touchdowns. He went over 100 yards for the 8th straight game that season, which he went over the century mark 16 times in his career, and those are both still records, I believe. He, in that game, passed his running backs coach, Leroy Keys, for the career touchdown mark, since broken by Corey Sheets, but Alstott held that record for almost 15 years or so. And the next week at Michigan, he would break the Otis Armstrong career rushing record as well. He was 34 yards short coming out of this game, but it's so easy to forget how important a player Mike Alstott was, because he played a position that basically doesn't exist anymore.
The funny thing is, you go back to those days when he played, and usually when you think in the Big Ten or in football in general about handing the ball off to a fullback, it's not a real exciting play.
No.
It's a play that you have to do, but it's not. Every time Mike Alstott touched the ball, you could hear the buzz start because you never knew what you were going to see. He had surprisingly deceptive speed. I mean, he wasn't going to outrun everybody, but he could outrun a lot of guys. But he was mostly going to run through you.
Yes.
And you knew one guy wasn't going to bring him down, probably not 2 and maybe not 3. And, you go to the bucket game that year, is unbelievable performance, but some of the runs he had in that game where he just came out of piles. But I just remember you would be at the stadium and you could hear the excitement as soon as the ball was handed to Mike because you just didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, he ran for 264 yards against Indiana a couple weeks later to take back the bucket from the Hoosiers, which was, like you said, the Boilermakers out of bowl contention. It was the one thing they had left to play for, and they went out and
the
did
strange thing was, that was a Friday afternoon game, and I don't remember. I think it was for TV.
Okay.
A poorly attended game at Memorial Stadium.
I can imagine.
A lot of people were doing their Black Friday shopping because and a lot of Boilermaker fans, but they saw one of the great individual performances of all time that day.
That game would be on our list. By the way,
it wasn't it was we made it Ross-Ade South that day, but technically no, it doesn't qualify.
Whenever it happened away from here, we can't talk about it in depth, but happy to mention it here. 398 yards combined for Watson and Alstott on the day. That's still the record for 2 teammates at Purdue, and I imagine will be for some time. Any other thoughts on 95?
No, it was a frustrating season because it was a team that had its moments, and you know, even in a game like this with Rick Trefsker, made a great play and then turned the ball over a couple times, and it was that kind of season. You would take 1.5 steps forward, 1.5 steps back, and you could never really get that momentum going. But a team and probably a senior class that deserved a little bit better.
Yeah.
And, the fact that Mike Alstott never got to play in a bowl game, it really is a shame.
It is a shame, and it's part of the reason that true Purdue fans know him and love him and respect him. We all do. But I don't know that he got as much national attention as he deserved at the time. He was one of the best players in the country that year.
But the football world did find out about Mike Alstott, because when you play and win the Super Bowl and score a touchdown, people will notice you.
That's very true. Played for over a decade, all with one team with the Buccaneers, 6-time Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro 3 times. And I said it to Mike earlier. I'll say it to Mike later. I'll say it to anybody who listens. I believe he belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
I'm with you.
Based on statistics and based on the fact that at the time he was head and shoulders better at that position than anybody in the game.
And as you'll see shortly, I believe at age 49, he could still run for 100 yards a game. He is in unbelievable physical shape.
My hand's still shaking a little bit from that handshake. Well, let's get right to it. You didn't come to listen to us talk. You came to listen to Mike Alstott. Here is the legend. He'll join us right after the break.
Your Central Indiana Ford dealers are a proud sponsor of Purdue football. Visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today.
All right, we are joined now by the Purdue Boilermaker legend, Mike Alstott. Mike, we're jumping in the time machine here. First of all, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time here today.
No, it's exciting to be back, and meet Coach Walters and the team and the staff. I mean, I just love what I see, and just mingling with them and talking with them, and it's great. I think it's going to be these kids are fortunate.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk about sort of the state of the program later, and all these facilities that every time we come back, it's a little bit different. Right? But first, let's go in the time machine to back to 1995, your senior year, the Wisconsin game, your first 200-yard game at Purdue, not your last. We'll talk about that in a bit too. But do you have any memories of sort of that day, that season? Sort of what comes to mind?
I remember we had a strong rushing attack that day. My co-partner Watson, he freaking I think you said earlier, he almost had 100. He had over 190.
Yep.
It was 200. Yeah. So it was like, I know we were like in a great rushing attack. It's funny you say that because I got to meet Jason Mackey, one of their defensive linemen that was a senior there at the Big Ten kickoff luncheon, right? Okay. And so we become friends and stuff like that, and then he gets drafted, and I don't know, I can't remember, late rounds with the Bucks, and he was my roommate. My roommate for 90, 96, 97, 98, and stuff like that. And when I was in Tampa, so just hitting that, we talking about that game a lot, with him defensive lineman, you couldn't stop the running game and stuff like that, and we had almost 400-yard rushing, right?
Yeah. And you out Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I mean, if people think about Purdue, Wisconsin now, they think about Ron Dane and all these guys running for wild. You guys ran around and through the Badger defense that day.
And I think just, I know times have changed, but, that's what the Big Ten was, and I guess, it's unfortunate that we didn't get to the point where we needed to go, because at times we looked like we were a freaking well-oiled machine, and then other times it's like, what the hell, you know what I mean? But the time is, it's like, we had very good personnel. The up front line was, great for me, in my time and stuff like that, and be able to do some of that stuff. But, it was a good run. It was a good run, and I thought we did a well job in a lot of the years just smash mouth football, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which kind of like the Big Ten, what it used to be known as, you know what I mean? So
That 95 season had to be a little bit frustrating, though, because I think you finished 4-6-1 that year.
Yeah.
And you never were able to get to the bowl game that you wanted to get to and deserved to get to.
Was it 4-6-1? I thought it was 5-6-1.
Was
it 2?
Yeah, we were only playing 11 games then.
Did we tie 2 games that year?
We had 2 ties the year before.
Oh, the year before?
Yeah. Now you tested me. My memory. I'm older than you are, Mike.
No, I mean, I get in the head a lot, so I mean, so.
But it's 4-6-1 and 4 losses by a touchdown.
And before we got on today, we were talking about the game at Michigan, which is maybe one of the worst weather games we've ever seen. It was a 5-0 Michigan win, and I remember you were getting onto the team plane right before me, and I just remember you were slumped down. Of course, it was really cold. It was raining, sleeting, snowing.
But that was the game that knocked you out of bowl contention, and I remember how badly I felt for you that day.
Yeah, no, it was so close but so far, kind of like that. It was just, be able to contention to be able to go to, one of those bowl games and get over the hump for Coach Coletta, you know what I mean? And it's just, again, losing something, losing 45-0, you're like, all right, we got our ass kicked.
Right.
But the thing is, if all of a sudden it's like losing 5-0, and it's just that's what kind of hit home. You know what I mean?
And just to show that day, I mean, Michigan Stadium holds about 100,000. That couldn't have been maybe 60,000 at most in the stadium that day. It was a game. The fans didn't even come out for that.
Yeah, no, it was a cold game. It plummeted. The temperature just dropped as the game was going on. I remember sitting in the huddle, just shake that, right? And like, it was the coldest by far, because you're wet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's wet.
I played in 3 inches of snow before, and it's fun. It's like being in the backyard playing football. But when you're wet and miserable and just soaking drenched, and all of a sudden it's like you get ice cubes, forming on you. You know what I mean?
But that season did have a happy ending because you put on one of the greatest performances in Purdue history against Indiana. You ran for well over 200 yards that day. And what do you remember from that day specifically? Your last game as a Boilermaker.
It's just obviously the last game. I need to ever be able to put the uniform on and stuff like that. And because I was always a guy. I was never looking ahead. It was always the moment, right? Live in the moment, play in the moment, and don't look beyond, and things will take care of itself. And it was like, did I have to play to, to whatever, kind of like they do nowadays. But that wasn't heard of it back then. But it was just, just a good game, rival game. That's all it was. It was our bowl game, and it was a rival game, and we were going on the road, and we wanted to finish off strong. We did have a chip on the shoulder, kind of like what you guys talked about earlier, about the statistics of losing 4 games underneath the score and stuff like that, and be able not to finish the season off where we wanted to as a senior class, because we had a strong senior class, with a lot of guys that are participating, in starting. And but it was a good day. It was a good rushing day and stuff like that, and finished it off on a good note, and we brought the bucket home. So that's how I remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a pretty iconic photo of you holding the bucket up in a basketball game. You remember that night?
Yeah, how I do. I do recall that night. Yeah, I'm all about community, right? And playing for your community, being with your community, and the community supporting obviously my career here, but at the same time is bringing home something to them. You know what I mean? Like I did in Tampa, we were I did we did we wept Super Bowl trophy home to them. But they were just like, that's what Tampa and West Lafayette, they kind of resemble us. Good old people that just love to watch some good ball. You know what I mean, and be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tampa, you had a pretty good run there. Why did that work for you? Well, was it, the system apparently fit what you did very well, but why did you have such great success with the Buccaneers?
Coach Dungy came in and they already, we already had a pretty good nucleus as it is with Lynch, Seth, Brooks, and maybe a couple other guys, but we had a nucleus there. And then Coach Dungy comes in, starts drafting and put together. It was just, what I always say I was fortunate because I didn't go to a Dallas Cowboys or San Francisco 49ers that had all these trophies and all this success already, and the organization is top of the world and stuff like that. And went to an organization. Coach Dungy came in. We had great athletes, but we just had to mold each other. You know what I mean? He had a lot of great different personalities, right? And it's hard to play football when you have different personalities that come from a lot of success somewhere. And Coach Dungy was the best at it in mentoring us and putting us in the situation. But the city was waiting for something, right? And then Coach Dungy comes in, and then we're so close, and then we had a great locker room. And talking to the team today, it's it's about your locker room. You know what I mean? It's about you guys. Seniors, stand up. You guys got to please us. And that's what we did. We had guys in each room, my running back room, myself, Brooks in his room, and John Lynch in his room, Sapp, and everybody had their own room, and we took it personal. We held our guys accountable in a lot of ways, and it was just good old football, and they just wanted to see some good smash mouth football. We played it kind of like what we did here, you know what I mean? Smash mouth football, run down their throat, and that's how we're going to do. We're going to start with the run, and we're going to finish with the run.
So much fun watching you and Work done. Yeah, the little lightning and thunder kind of combo you guys had. And it's so cool that you landed in a place, because so much of success at the next level is finding the right place. You landed in a place that was going to utilize your skills as a very traditional fullback, but still, kind of a throwback fullback.
But they gave me, like, I would say the opportunity set up just like it did here. Come in, be the fullback, run the fullback belly play a couple times, show what you can do, and then evolve in the passing game, and then you know what, let's dot the I, and then let's give them some cures there and stuff like that. So it's similar situations, right? A lot of similar, but I don't know. We just put my head down and just go. You know what I mean? Really didn't think about it other than coming to the playground every day, because everybody calls it to work, and I call it playing football until I was 35 years old. It's like, really, pinch yourself, right? And I'm blessed. I'm blessed, for my time here. I'm blessed for my time in Tampa. 2 great communities, organizations that we're not on top of the world, and stuff like that. That you can leave your mark, and hopefully that can change and grow and do different stuff over time, and people can look for inspiration, as the organization goes on, rather than being one of the numbers, greats, you know what I mean, like that. Again, I remember at San Francisco or the Cowboys, you have all those guys from generation, it's like that, and we have that, but it was great to bring the first trophy ever to Tampa, and that will always stick in. Tampa people always remember that.
As a kid playing football, Mike, I'm sure you dreamed as you watched the Super Bowl on TV of maybe getting in there one day. What's it like for a kid from Joliet to run onto the field on Super Bowl Sunday? Oh, by the way, score a touchdown. Oh, by the way, get to hold the trophy afterward.
Yeah, no, it's dream come true ever since, I started playing football from 5 years old. That's what I want to do. I want to go, it's kind of like when you write your first paper, what do you want to do when you grow up type of thing, when you're in 2nd, 3rd grade, whatever it was. And I want to play football. I want to do this. I want to go to Division I college. I want to go pros. And it was kind of like handwritten, but it was my goals. You know what I mean? But again, though, that does not happen unless you have great people and mentors in your life. You know what I mean? And I was very fortunate. And there's a laundry list that keeps on going on, that people here, people in Joliet, people in Tampa, people everywhere, and people in my life that inspired me in the ways to do things, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I was driven, and I wanted to conquer that goal.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about life after football, but I got to say, Mike, it looks like you could put on a pair of shoulder pads right now and run for about 200 yards tomorrow. You have stayed in tremendous shape post football.
That's what I do. I'm worried about the aftermath of football, I guess, right now. You know what I mean? It's just, playing for so many years, 35 years old, probably almost 30 years probably playing, and I'm 49 now, and it's like, I'm just trying to maintain brain health, physical health, and stuff like that, and trying to, not put myself in any more jeopardy than it is already, you know what I mean, is when it comes to my health and trying to, overcome the odds.
Yeah. Reading back some of the old coverage of your time here, it's really cool to see you're always giving credit to your offensive linemen, the coaches. You're always spreading around the glory. And it's neat to see you here today. You're doing that still, looking back, your old teammates, your old coaches, at every program, the community. Why is that so important to spread the line like that?
It's the truth, right? It's like I said earlier, it's just like a lot of people encourage me to be where I'm at right now. It's because of other people. You know what I mean? I get emotional about it, but it's the truth. I'm blessed. You know what I mean? I lived the dream that a lot of people would love to live, but it was just even now, at 49 years old, I'm in Tampa, and it's just a place that, will always be home. You know what I mean? Even up on a Midwestern. I really am proud to grow up as a Midwestern, right? But no, you're in Florida, you love Florida, the weather. No, I got a different love for not just the weather. I mean, I love the weather, don't get me wrong. But the thing is, it's like, leaving here, being 22 years old, and then going somewhere again, 18 here, 22 there, and then all of a sudden it's like, you're thrown in the ring again. And, people brought me in, you know what I mean? So.
You stayed in football, though. You've been coaching at the high school level. Are you guys dragging semis or trucks or whatever it is to do through parking lots? Is that part of your training?
Yeah, we have. I don't coach. I don't coach no more though. I mean, last year's my last year as a head coach for 11 years. But yeah, no. I mean, it was.
So that was not an urban legend, right? I mean, you actually
did those things.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. Oh.
Now, did somebody tell? Hey, is that something you just came up with on your own?
No, me and my best friend Ryan Brown at high school when I was playing at Joey Catholic, we pushed this station wagon along the telephone poles. I knew we measured out the telephone poles that were going along there's cornfields on each side, and we measured out the telephone poles or the power lines, whatever they were, and it would be 100 yards. So we'd push it all the way from the end of that road to the end of the road, and we get in it and we play Rocky Balboa or something like that, or AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, whatever, and then we would just freaking put in neutral and say, it's your turn, you go 100 yards, you're trying to, stuff like that. And then it came here with me and my Jeep with Jamie Washell in that parking lot where they have the band behind that side of the stadium, you know what I mean? By the tunnel down. But we did the same thing here. And I pulled tires. Just, like I said, it's like, you need to get it done. You don't have the resources here. There's resources everywhere, right? And I think that's where the uniqueness of it, came about, because I was telling the kids earlier, it's like, I wasn't the greatest talent. I wasn't head speed. I didn't have anything, but it was heart and it was work ethic. You know what I mean? And I wanted, and I even told my high school kids this for so many years to say, hey, you want to be something, you be it. It's that simple. You know what I mean? The mind is strong. The mind is powerful. And if you can, do whatever it takes to do it, you're going to give yourself a fighting chance. You know what I mean? So it's just, when kids get deterred or upset about stuff and everything like that, it's just, there's other ways to go about it. And that's what I'm trying to help kids with. Yeah.
Can tell you coached for over a decade. You've got that inspirational speech down, being able to reach kids. That might be a future venture for you if you want to go down that path. It seems like you got a really great message.
No, I could have coached twice in the pros. When I got hurt and had to retire, could have coached in 08 with the Boxer crew, and then Raheem Morris came on. I don't know how many years later, and he's like, "You ready to coach that?" I'm like, "Nah." So I just went to high school level. And plus now I'm kind of like retired from it, and I'm kind of like just doing that traveling game now. Like I wouldn't be here right now if I was coaching, what I mean? So, and doing some other things. But I had a good run. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I was stimulated. It helped me. It was perfect time in my life. My son was involved, and I stayed on 5 years after my son. But it was a good time in my life that I needed. And I even told it was Northside Christian that I coached at, and I told Northside at the end, I go, it was a time when I was in depression, not knowing what to do, and what's the next thing for me, and God put me in that path, and showed me to go coach and get your fix and be a part of the game and help kids, and it was an awesome time, and it saved me.
That's great.
Yeah.
It sounds like football's been really good for Mike Alstott, but Mike Alstott's been pretty good for football too.
Yeah, it was a good run. It's a good run.
I'll be the first, probably not the first. I'll be the next to say, I hope the Pro Football Hall of Fame recognizes how important you were to the game, because I think that would only be fitting.
I appreciate it. It's just, I can't sit here and worry about that. I did what I could do, and maybe someday it'll happen.
And you got the Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
So that
we held up the trophy, and a lot of NFL players never get to do that. And I mean, look at Dan Marino. That's one guy that sticks on my mind a lot when I talk about that. And it was the process. And it was kind of like the process we were doing here in '95, where we were so close. But again, so far, but we were close. We put ourselves in. It wasn't like we were getting our butts kicked. When I was saying, we were beating good teams, and then the easy teams, and then getting destroyed by the better teams, but we, the process of how we went about doing it, trying to build a program, and I think that's what was so special. My time here and my time, especially in Tampa, with a bunch of guys, like I said earlier, man, it's hard to get some guys and take their personalities away and put team in front. And Coach Dungy was a great mentor in doing that, along with the other coaches, and he helped us become that team. And that's what I'm just trying to get across to these players today, is say, hey guys, it'll come together if you're passionate about it. And that's what I was so blessed to be in Tampa, because we're a passionate football team. We really love football. We love ball. And we loved each other, and we stood on top of the stage because of our hard work with each other. Ups and downs. Don't get me wrong. We had a lot of peaks and valleys, but it was a really good situation for us here. And and I'm really excited for this era of football for Purdue. Just speaking a couple of times, Coach and Walters about he looks. Yeah, man, I opened up with the team. I'm like, man, I want one of those helmets. I talked to him for 5 minutes.
He can play now.
I'm that coach right there. I was talking for 5 minutes, your coach, and I'm like, I'd run through a wall for him right now. You know what I mean? And just he's exciting. He's got great coaches. I talked to 3 or 4 of them. You know what I mean? And it's really cool. I'm really excited for Purdue. I'm excited for these kids. I'm excited for the community and where it's going to go. They got a great leader, young leader too.
Mike, thank you again for your time, and hope you enjoy the weekend.
No, thank you for having me. I'm so blessed to be back, and it's great seeing you all again.